29th on the Player of the Year leaderboard, but on the seasonal leaderboard, he actually is in the top 4 or 5 players.
Oh, wow, cool.
Off of the back of, he top 4'd the Invitational Columbus, and then he also top 8'd the Open that was in Milwaukee the following week after that. So
cool.
So he's, actually he was the one that's in the lead with 60 points.
Oh, nice.
So Andrew Maine is crushing it.
Yeah.
Let's see if we can keep that going so we can lock up his spot for the Players' Championship. Not a lot of people may have heard of him in the past, but it's definitely going to be his season.
Yeah, so one thing that's a little interesting is if Robbie did indeed win Game 1, Andrew Maine actually has 2 Evolutionary Leap in his main deck. So that combined with the Declaration of Stones over the Jamokus commands, I think that means that Andrew Maine has really geared his deck to fight control decks. The fact that he lost Game 1 bodes kind of poorly for him. So he may be in a tough situation. Kind of has his back against the wall.
Yeah, I have to believe if that's what happened, more than likely it involved in an early Kalidas that didn't get handled and then just a bunch of removal spells.
Yeah, that could certainly be it. I have to imagine that it was since they're only in Game 2, that is a pretty long, drawn-out game, so I'm sure a lot of things happened. But the fact that, I think Andrew is really looking to pick up Game 1 with those Evolutionary Leaps in the main deck.
So both players are on 6, and it looks like Andrew...
A gentleman's mulligan.
Andrew actually has 0 copies of Secure the Waste in his 75, too.
Yeah.
So it is quite unorthodox. He does not have a 2-drop here, just a Westval Abbey and pass. Robbie Cordell does have a copy of Sylvan Advocate to add to his battlefield, so he's going to start building his board early. Andrew's going to play a Nissa, Voice of Zendikar on her turn. Going to plus it, get an 0-1 plant, pass back to Robbie.
Yeah, this is a pretty interesting build that Andrew has. Definitely not the typical version.
So Robbie is just going to play a Nissa, Voice of Zendikar on the second turn, and he's curving out very nicely here. This is a control deck, but like we said earlier, he has a lot of creatures, and they're either great rates for their power and toughness at their cost, or have some extra ability that's awesome. Something like Nissa, something like Kalidas, something like Tireless Tracker.
Yeah, one thing that I really like and admire about these green-black decks are they're just very, very functional decks. They usually don't have the most broken draws, but they're almost always doing a pretty good job of curving out and hitting their land drops and not flooding out. And all in all, they're when you think of just a functional Magic deck, they're just the definition of it.
Well, Andrew has a Gideon on his turn 4, and combined with Nissa, they're going to make a couple tokens and pass back to Robbie. Robbie's going to Duress and see a hand of Declaration in Stone, another Nissa, and a Death Protector. So he's going to take that Declaration in Stone. Looks like we've got a Virulent Plague.
Shots fired. This is a pretty
big
deal.
Out of the sideboard.
Both your blockers are gone. Kill your Gideon. Your Nissa's not doing anything valuable on this board.
Yeah, that was real rough.
Yeah, that was a big deal. Yeah. And Andrew's really got to take care of this Virulent Plague ASAP.
Looks like Robbie has 2 copies of Virulent Plague in his sideboard, so he was pretty ready for these green-white tokens deck. Here comes Gideon. He's just going to plus the Gideon. He's going to plus the Nissa. It's going to die. Plussing that Nissa is kind of dangerous. If it ever gets to the point where it could be ultimated, Robbie could just steal it with Dragonlord Silumgar and Nissa's Revelation himself. Here we've got.
Yeah, this is a really rough spot. I'm kind of surprised that Andrew didn't just make an emblem with his Gideon, because that way at least another Gideon would be able to make 1/1 night tokens that could potentially do some blocking duty, and Andrew has to assume that his Gideon's just going to die, since it was a on board kill it.
Robbie doesn't have a 5th land, so he's just going to fire up that Hissing Quagmire, attack Gideon for 6, get it off the battlefield, pass the turn back to Andrew. He looks like he is in a rough spot here. That Nissa just keeps going up, but if he doesn't have anything relevant this turn, it's going to take 6 damage next turn.
Yeah.
Here we have a face-down Den Protector.
And Andrew also doesn't have his 5th land, so both decks, kind of teetering out in terms of land drops, but the board is pretty well developed on each side. Both players have used their mana fairly well, but Robbie is just coming out ahead because that Virulent Plague is just absolutely backbreaking.
So Robbie's going to attack with his Sylvan Advocate and his Nissa, sending them both at Nissa. Nissa's attacking herself. It's kind of a paradox.
I like that.
Now we have a Ruinous Path that's going to take care of that Den Protector.
And I like how Robbie set that up. You know, he gave Andrew the opportunity to potentially trade because Robbie thought maybe I won't need to use this Ruinous Path.
See, Andrew has an Evolutionary Leap and a Sylvan Advocate to rebuild the board. But Robbie found his 5th land. That's going to let him use a Ruinous Path, take care of the Sylvan Advocate, attack Nissa dead with his 4 power of creatures.
And this is the best way to deal with Planeswalkers, is just kill the blockers and then attack the Planeswalkers. That is literally one of the best ways to do it. And this game is over. Man, Andrew Maine just had things lined up so poorly for him. The Virulent Plague was definitely like the haymaker punch in that game. And that's one of the things that's a little tricky about playing the green-white tokens deck, is the Virulent Plague is like a pretty powerful hate card.